together.
Doesn't work together well. On the Geek Way to the West shirt.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, hey, so I guess all up, anyone who doesn't know you, Todd, or should we call you itinerant hobbyist or the rogue?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you need to mute yourself. You got to tell or mute the video. You got to tell everybody the story behind your robe, so they know how that came to being. That car.
Okay, so yeah, Todd Reed is my real name. So I started out with itinerant hobbyist, and I still have that because that's kind of like travel from hobby to hobby, just kind of not a professional hobbyist type of guy. And then, of course, it's a nice long name, and every URL I ever choose is like 55 characters long. It's ridiculous. But then, so my dad passed away last November, and so I got, he and I were built exactly the same, skinny, tall dudes. And of course, my stepmom was like, well, we got some of his clothes, probably some of them fit and some of them do. And one of them was this sweet robe. I mean, it is like cushy, soft. And I was like, I'm not a robe guy necessarily, but it was a sweet robe. It's from England. I don't know. She said he spent way too much money on it, but it is, I'm telling you, man, this thing is cozy. You just want to curl up and go to sleepy pie. But, so I think I was on another live chat. I get on one with some minis guys or something. I don't know when I started it, but it's just fun, just dumb, goofy stuff, So then, of course, a lot of people are like the robe, you bring in the robe. And so I say the robe compels you and all this stuff. And now my son tells me, the 19-year-old son, he's kind of been getting into teaching himself music because that's what he does. He just finds I want to learn how to do this. So he's been teaching himself electronic music and stuff. So he's looking up guys and gals that do that, kind of thing with keyboards and synthesizers and all that. And he found this guy, and this guy does his concerts in a robe, and he calls himself the Robe and something else. And people talk about the Robe called me and all this stuff. I'm like, doggone it. Nothing doing with son, man.
Someone's already stolen your shtick, but at least your shtick, it's specific to the hobby, so it's good. You'll be the only guy in a robe in the hobby.
I don't think our audience is going to mix too much.
No, there's probably not a lot of crossover. Hey Mo, how you doing, man?
Though I do get some young ladies on Facebook that look like they go to raves and stuff that really want to be my friends and I guess learn about miniatures and board gaming. I don't know who these women are. They're like 20.
You get better than I do.
They look like Instagram models. But I know a lot of gamers get these women saying, I usually decline them because I'm like, hey, I don't have time.
I got dice to roll.
I don't have time for the ladies. And I'm happily married. Is she watching? I am happily married, actually. So, Kev, how are you doing during all this craziness?
I've been good. I'm not complaining. I got some games going. We got some big stuff going that takes time that I can put the time into. So it's all good. I'm not complaining. I actually, the last couple of days, I really haven't done anything game-wise, or other than a little bit of writing. I've maybe done probably 2 hours of gaming. That's been pretty. I think I'm tired from because I went pretty hardcore for 2 or 3 weeks straight. But yeah. So, but anyway, I wanted to talk to you because you have for me anyway, you're one of the few guys I know that does any sort of vlogging at all that does the heavy crossover. So you play board war games and you do minis and you play a lot of minis games. I know there's a lot of guys like Rob, he does a lot of painting online, but I've never really, I don't get to watch a lot of people's channels, but I've not seen, that Rob chap actually play many games or live stream them, but you live stream a lot of minis games and you also play a lot of board games. And so I was curious about, what you saw the advantages and disadvantages of each and the things you like about each, because you collect and paint and build terrain and buy models and play, but you also play a lot of board war games as well. So curious about what do you think the advantages of minis are over board games, first of all?
Well, so The reason I like minis, just to get straight to the point, the reason I like minis over board war games is that I'm a very visual person, and I've always liked. I never really did. I did a few models as a kid, but I usually just slapdash them together. And
Right.
I mean, I just painting was too hard. I did painting, and what's funny is now that I see how you can paint, I'm like, wow, it's not really that hard. I could have done that, but in 1985 or 4 or 3 when I was doing that, there were no YouTube videos.
Right.
And learning from a book is a little different. I mean, I'll tell you what, videos really help that, show you how it's not too bad. But I know, I mean, I just can't beat the visceral feeling of being on getting down with the minis on the table at the eye level. Hey, let's take a little walk, shall we, Kev?
Yeah, let's have a look. Yeah, let's talk about it while you're doing that, because this is the thing that I love. So when I'm playing, being able to get down at this level and sort of see what's going on and see what the soldiers see, type of thing.
Yeah, and it's just so awesome. I mean, and this, I don't know. So real quick, how I got started in it is my friend Jay. I'd seen miniatures and stuff, and I'd played. There's some really good. There's a couple. Gaming in St. Louis is really good, both mini and board war game. And that's how Geekway to the West has been able to grow as a board gaming convention, because we have really good meetup groups for board gaming, and that's mainly Euro gaming and stuff.
Right.
And but there's always been a really strong board game, like Jim Burris here with ASL. He runs a tournament for 15 years or something, and he creates scenario packs. But there's a bunch of guys at OCS and stuff. And so there's a bunch of war gamers too, and mini gamers. So I don't know why. I don't know if it's just central US. I don't know why there's so many, but it seems like a pretty core group. Anyway, so I played with minis, guys, and I would always be like, man, those are awesome, but there is no way I'm going to do that, because it's a lot of freaking work, dude. So, but I was at my friend Jay's house, who he's been gaming his whole life, probably since, I don't know, as young as he could go. And I'm 50 now, but he's probably, I don't know how old Jay is, but anyway, mid 40s or something like that. So he's been gaming for a long time, but he's done role playing, 40K. He's one of the owners with Geekway, and he's mainly board gaming and role playing now, because he gave up on that money pit that is miniature gaming. It's mainly 40K, which can just be a money suck. But he was painting up. There's a game called Space Hulk. It's a board game.
Oh yeah, love it. Yeah,
it's cool. It's a cool game. Great minis in it, right? Because it's GW and they make good stuff. Games Workshop for the uninitiated. Nerd. So he decided to paint up a Space Hulk kit, because he had painted 40K minis a million years ago. So I went and watched him do a couple, and I'm like, oh, well, that's not that hard to do and look pretty good. And so I started watching some videos, and I played minis a few more times with some guys. I picked my scale, which was 6 mil, so that guys were 6 millimeters tall, which are tiny, right? These guys here that I have out, that I just showed you, are 15, so that they're pretty small,
right?
So imagine just half that size. Well, those 6 millimeter guys paint up super quick, because you just bloop, 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 you put some magnifying glasses on, and they can look pretty good pretty easily, especially World War II, because it's real simple color schemes. I'm not doing Napoleonics or something crazy like that. I'm not insane. So anyway, so I painted those up, and it was a cool feeling to have all those minis on the table. And then you just kind of have to build it up. I think that's part of it. You just have to kind of build and go, because I go to this guy named Jerry's house here. We played Arnhem in 15 mil, and gosh, man, I've got a video of it on my channel somewhere.
I think I saw it.
Yeah, it's really old, but it's overwhelming, because he has so much stuff. Well, the guy's at the time was 70. He's been playing since he was who knows how old. Well, he's been collecting for 40, 50 years. So you have to kind of like step back a minute and say, okay, I'm not going to have that tomorrow. I don't have that much money. You could go buy it, I suppose, but I don't have that much money to go buy a table like that and stuff. So you just have to be patient with it. I don't know why I started on that. So I started on it because a friend of mine, I saw how easy it was to paint, and you can get pretty decent results. Like even me, the minis, I bought these minis painted, and they're terrible. I'm gonna have to touch them up. So I'm even that far where I'm like, ugh.
Well, so
but I liked it because it's, I know you've seen little model dioramas, right? People who are really good at modeling, which I'm not. And they're just amazing, right? It's like the 3D picture of a World War II scene or whatever war you're into. Well, you're just kind of doing that here on the table here, and you can, you kind of see it happening. Now, I'm always kind of lean towards tactical games, so both on board games and this is really tactical, right? I mean, you can play mini games at battalion and division scale too, but if I'm going to do that, I'm probably going to play it a board game.
Right. Yeah, there seems to be a separation of reality or immersion at a certain scale, right? Because all of a sudden, one guy is now representing 100 guys or 300 guys, whereas so with your 15 millimeter guys there, what are they representing? That's in individuals.
So in this game the last couple of live plays I've done is a game called Flames of War.
Right.
So it's a popular tournament style game. And this is my first time playing it. They're 1-to-1. So what you see is what you get. One guy is one guy. One tank's a tank. My favorite game of choice is Blitzkrieg Commander, where each stand is a platoon. So yeah, you do have to kind of then remove yourself a little bit in the immersion. And so this would be...
You use the same guys?
You can, yeah. And I will probably start doing that. Now, I've had a different basing. That's another thing that drives you crazy about miniature wargaming is, what basing am I going to use? Anyway, so Flames of War makes it easy. But I have them, they're about half this size, and there's 2 guys on it. So that first game I was playing with Jerry, the Arnhem game, it's a game called Command Decision. And every stand is a platoon, and there's 2 guys on each stand. And then, the good guys like Jerry and others label it like this is the, I don't know, 1st Airborne Division, 2nd, whatever, 3rd platoon or whatever,
They're building the specific units. They're not just taking a generic.
Yeah, what they typically do, Kevin, is they have space on they make new labels every time they play a game. So you can like glue them on and stuff.
They do.
Well, right. Now I've used generic labels. Now Flames of War, you don't have to use that, but I've used generic labels like 1-3 or 1-2. So it's 1st company, 2nd platoon, or you can use it whatever you want. 1st squad, 1st whatever. You get it.
Yep.
So I just do them generic. But I got to tell you, Kevin, it's very cool when you see the label on the thing. It's like, Grand Tactical or something. When you see the division and the regiment and whatever it is, it really brings it to life more, right? So, but it takes a lot more work that way.
So how do you settle in on a game system? Because I have 2 or 3 friends that play with minis, and one guy, he's all 28 millimeter, right?
Yeah. And
so he has one buddy who actually has more than one buddy. He has 2 or 3 guys that play minis here in Austin. And there used to be a store that we would go to where the owner had a massive collection across all eras, all in 6 millimeter, and he would let you kind of rent them or use them to play.
Oh, that's cool.
And he had all the terrain, so you could just walk in, grab whatever terrain you wanted, and slap down an army and play. And it was really interesting. But those guys, they seem to go through systems super quick, and they'll go spend $300, $400, $500 on an army, and then next thing I know, oh no, we're not doing that now. We're doing Middle Ages, and we're doing some other thing, and then we're not doing this now. We're doing that. And I was like, because every time I get excited, I start looking and get ready to plan to buy, and like, oh no, don't do that. We're moving to this now. It's like, what's that game? Blood and Bow or Blood and something. It was the medieval one where there were different tribal classes. So there were humans and dwarves and Scottish guys or what. I don't know what they were. I forget what it was called, but every race or faction had a set of specific capabilities. And it was good, really good medieval combat. And I was like, this is awesome. You had dudes with bows and arrows and spears and cavalry and guys with axes, and they could get this blood rust roll. And it was very, very thematic. And, just taking pictures and writing stuff about it. We had a blast with it, right? Then they're like, we're going to go do medieval in Jerusalem now, in Africa, the infidels. So we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, well, okay. So Kev, I mean, you play board games, you know how it is. I mean, it's the same way in board games.
Right.
Oh man, ASL is the best thing ever. Oh wait, Lock and Load's the best thing ever. Oh no, wait, I'm playing OCS now. I mean, we do it in that level too, but the commitment's less.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about the painting and the time and the terrain and the basing, and I could never understand. There's one thing that I don't understand about miniatures. There seems to be so many barriers to getting into miniatures that you've got to really, really want to get into it.
Yeah, you do.
Particularly if you want to do anything above skirmish, man on man type.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just become just super popular now. I mean, starting with games like Bolt Action, Chain of Command, where you only need to field like, I don't know, a platoon of guys one-on-one. So 30 to 50 guys, a couple tanks, a couple guns. There's even some that go even further down, but I would say those are the more popular ones because you don't have to field those huge armies. So like that command decision game I was telling you about, man, just even the basic scenarios in the book, they're pretty doable in the book. There's like 6 to 12 scenarios, but even they start getting big, and then most of the scenarios for command decision are just huge. I'm just like, holy, how do you? So like with Blitzkrieg Commander, I adapt a lot of those command decision scenarios. So speaking to that, yes, many gamers do the same exact thing that board war gamers do, and this is why you hear the mountains of lead that people have. I have gone down that road a few times. So like I bought some ACW stuff, because here's what happens, Kev, and I do the same thing with board games. We could have another show about this, but I played an ACW game at probably Jerry's house. And it was awesome. I had a great time. Good guys. That's what makes the games most fun, right? It's the people you're hanging out with. Good time. I'm like, dang, man, that was really fun. I want to get some of those. So I bought some. There were some people making some pre-painteds, which is rare. So I bought some, but then even with that, even with pre-paint, I'm like, not really that interested in Civil War. I mean, just not enough to put all this effort and work into it.
Right.
Maybe I'll play a board game, or maybe I'll go to Jerry's house and play one that he's set up. So long story short, and I could go on and on. I've tried a few different others, even skirmish ones. And I just eventually just go, you know what? I don't have very much time and energy for this stuff. Even during this time, I'm on furlough and I got all this time, even though this seems like your calendar fills up anyway. So I looked at how Jerry's done it, right? He's kind of my role model for a lot of things. He's just slowly collected this army, and now he's got this army and terrain that he can hold Arnhem on it was a 12 to 14 foot long board, right? And then had like 10 guys there. How cool is that? Well, again, he didn't get there overnight. So I like, you know what? I can easily commit to World War II. That's easy for me. I'm not that interested enough in other eras to paint minis and do all that crap, because I don't paint well enough. And these guys are easy. Black, gray, brown, gray, green, little silver here for a gun thing or whatever. So I feel pretty confident about that. Now, the thing I do is I kind of flitter a little bit to rule set. But I've kind of narrowed it down to Blitzkrieg Commander, Bolt Action. And the reason I'm kind of trying this Flames of War is, first of all, I found the guy that was selling all like 20 pounds of books for like $30 or something like that.
Oh,
so
I remember you did that video and then you unboxed, right?
Yeah. So I got all these Flames of War books. And so Flames of War has been one of those games. That's kind of one of those games you hear about all the time. Like, even if you don't play minis, you hear about it because it's very popular. It's like Warhammer or something.
Right.
But I was never going to play because I'm not a tournament player. If you see all the pictures of the games with Flames of War, all the tanks are butted up against each other. Like, they look like phalanx or like Napoleonics or something. And there's a lot of people talk about it's because of the scale of the game, which a little bit of it is, but it's also a little bit how the rules are written. And you jam a 6x4 table full of tanks, there's no place to put. I mean, this is a 6 foot by 4 foot table, and if I had a ton of tanks, there's not a lot of room to spread them out.
Right.
Whereas
So
Blitzkrieg Commander, I'm only putting.
That's one thing I found sometimes. So like with Bolt Action, I only played one game of that, and I really wasn't that excited to play it again. We played Australians versus Japanese, and the ranging and the weapons capabilities and stuff like that. If you've done any sort of ASL or lock and load or any of the board war games, you start looking at this going, hang on a second, how can 10 guys with rifles be more effective than one heavy machine gun? And you think, wait a second here. Now, there was cool command mechanics and all that sort of stuff behind it that made it interesting. I think it's if I recall, it's either a chit pull, like a formation pull or something like that.
You pull a dice, so you just pull German or American dice, and then
whoever goes, then they go, right? So then I was like, well, I'm not really getting. There's no tactics to be had that I can see that I could relate to coming from a board war game that at least enforced some pseudo reality. Well, we all know it. That's not real.
Yeah.
We're throwing rocks at each other and all that sort of stuff. It's not real. So, but just, reality relative to board war games. So I was a little.
Yeah. I mean, you have to choose the reality. You have to choose the abstraction you're comfortable with.
Right.
And so kind of what I'm finding, Kev, is that So Blitzkrieg Commander is really a straightforward game. It's based on the old War Master system. I think I've talked about it on your channel before, but it's pretty straightforward. It's not real detailed. There's the game Chain of Command is by a company called Two Fat Lardies. You would probably enjoy that. Have you played that one before?
I have not. I've read the rules for one of their game systems, and I have a bunch of little toy soldiers here that my kids used to have, and I was trying to work out how to use them, but they're bigger. They're 1/72nd scale, and it wasn't. I couldn't be bothered doing the math. So
yeah. Well, those would work for Chain of Command, but you probably like Chain of Command. It's a little bit more realistic, and there's some good thinking you have to do there. So, and their games are great. I like the whole aesthetic and the vibe of the Two Fat Lardies. Like they would probably dig the robe, and they're just cool guys, and they seem like, and they're very historical focused. I mean, and they make money by selling you rules. They don't make money selling minis. And the scenario, they make so many scenario packs, Kev. It's awesome. I mean, and they're heavily researched. They're coming out with an Arnhem one soon, or a Market Garden, that I'm super pumped about Chain of Command, even though I don't play the rules. But they do a lot of research, and their games are based around historical type of games, right? Not so much tournament. Mm-hmm. I've tried setting up games where it's like a tournament type of scenario where it's like, meeting engagement or no man's land, and I just don't get into it. I need a story behind it. I need
Right.
Even though I know this is not south of Cherbourg, and it's not, it just, I can get into it more. So anyway, what I found is that Chain of Command is a great game, and Matt and I, a local guy here, there's some videos on his channel, Rocky's War Room, where we played, and it was fun. And there is a lot you got to really work out some cool thinking about how you allocate your troops and what you're going to do, but it's a brain burner. And then Bolt Action, it's not so much a brain burner. I mean, you kind of, you played it. Well, I found myself really enjoying Bolt Action, and I thought, well, you know what, that's okay.
Yeah.
So I think what I found is I like a little bit more simplicity in my miniature games, because I'm more into it kind of for the look of it, and as close to reality as I'm going to get with these things.
Sure.
I mean, you would probably hate Flames of War stuff. I mean, the ranges on them mortars are like 20. I don't know. The ranges are crazy in the game, but it's a game, so you kind of. But last night when I was playing, I'm kind of getting that same vibe I got with Bolt Action. So I think I want simplicity in my miniature gaming and a little bit more depth in my board war gaming.
Right.
ASL, or I'm not going to probably play much OCS, but Grand Tactical or something where you just got to think a little bit more. Even with board war games, I kind of go simpler. I think gaming for me is a little bit more of I don't want to spend so much mental energy on that. I've kind of come to find it. Even though I'm getting back into ASL, so who knows. But that's kind of where I'm landing on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's part of me that if I could set up all the different battles from the Second Punic War between the Carthaginians and the Romans, and have two complete armies that would allow me to refight all those battles, and see and let that movie play through my head and then on the table. Yeah, I would be on it in a second. I think the same goes for Napoleonics to a certain extent. I when I was young, 12, 15, 17 years old, I painted up a bunch of Napoleonic minis, and I took them to a group in Melbourne, and I was trying to get a game, and all these guys were like, yeah, those minis, they're really shit, and should just go home, little boy. So I said, well, fuck that. I went back to my Avalon Hill Waterloo game, right? So
Right.
they got deeper and deeper into war games. But anyway, but there's an immersive element, I think, and also there's story. I think there's story from both board games and minis, but I think it's just rich and evocative when you get down and you're seeing the line of sight the guys have and they're popping shots off and doing things. It's pretty cool. I've played Force on Force. I like that game at that kind of skirmish level. Not happy with the rule mechanics, the firing in those games. It was just kind of really well. It's really weird and awkward. You've got special operators who, excuse me, I've got a bug trying to attack me. Special operators against a bunch of terrorists or whatever the case may be, and even the terrorists, just because of the massive fire, end up being way more effective than a special ops group like Rangers or Marines who. So the games weren't playing. We all just went, wow, this is kind of odd. And so the guys house ruled a bunch of stuff, and that fixed it. But 75, 80, 120 page rule book with thousands of pictures and rule tables scattered all over the place. And we had to do a lot of work just to get to the point where we could play. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of work to get there, right? Just to come to the realization that it's better to be the terrorists.
So. Well, right. So that's something that you've talked about. You've commented and mentioned when you've watched my videos, stuff about, we've talked about mini wargaming. I think you've asked me before, because house ruling is a huge thing in many war games. I mean, so few people, even the hardcore people who love a rule set. Now, if they're doing tournament gaming, that's different. They play the rules as written.
Right.
But if you're playing them like I do with the historical ones like Command Decision and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this house rule like crazy. And I know you and other people have asked, and I used to think they're like, wait, why are you making these rules up, or how's it working? And it just seems to work better, because I think there's more flexibility in the miniature game, because they're a little bit more loose than the board games. And like the board here, I may put the bush. Oh, you can't see my monitors in the way, but I may put the bush over here. But the scenario designed it for over. It's hard to design you can design a scenario and play test it, like to make sure it kind of works with the balance with the rules and the troops and the general table. But no table is ever going to be the same, and how you and I judge a table is going to be different. I mean, you're playing it there in Austin, and I'm playing it here, and whereas on a Lock and Load, for the most part, I know there's always people house rule board games, and I know a guy who wants to house rule ASL for things. I'm like, are you serious, dude?
Aren't there enough rules to remember without the house rules?
Yes, he wanted to. As soon as he told me that, I'm like, I'm never playing this guy in ASL. No. Now, and again, I understand occasionally there's a little thing here and there, but not the level he was talking about. Anyway, there's just more flexibility, and you can even like bolt action. There's a lot of things you can do. Yeah, Matt, I can see that. It'd be easy to just get with the starter sets. So anyway, so I think that's some of the thing is just there's more flexibility in here, and so like you said with Force on Force, I know some guys here who play Force on Force and they love it. They love that game, and I have a pretty cool video up, and it's one of my highest hit, probably because it has Ukraine in the title, and I'm sure it's a bunch of Russians looking at it, but they did a Ukraine game, a fairly modern game, and the table looked awesome and it was great. I didn't play it. I just was there kind of watching, but they seem to love Force on Force, but I don't know anything about it really. But starter sets. I love starter sets. I think they're cool, but I gotta tell you, most rule sets, they're good to kind of learn like the basics of shooting, moving and all that, but you don't really get enough into the rules, I don't think, to kind of understand those nuances, like for maybe bolt action, any game. I mean, gosh, there's board games like that too. If you kind of play like, I don't know, Lock and Load, a couple of those real starter scenarios, they're fun, they're cool, but you don't really get the nuances, or even some of the OCS like super easy scenarios. Like, now you really need to play this. Once you start getting to a certain stage, then you start to see the connections between whatever the connections are. And I think that's the same way with these games. Sometimes you just have to play a few games to kind of like, oh, okay, that's how that's working together, and this is kind of how I need to think through it. And like the scale of shooting in Flames of War is ridiculous, but you're also like, well, okay, it's a game. That's what they've chosen. They've tested it out, and as a game, it works. So the question is, are you willing to suspend a little bit of?
People complain all the time about lock and load tactical, that it's a 75-meter hex, but I spotted the guy. Why does the spotted marker come off at the beginning of the next turn? Right? Yeah. It's a game, and to make the game work, that's one of the rules. And yes, there's a logical justification, for anything, but it's just a mechanic of the game to make the game playable. Otherwise, everyone dies in the second turn, right?
So in ASL, they use concealment markers and skulking, right?
Right.
It achieves the same thing. And people are like, skulking's stupid. I'm like, well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad there's not a good mechanic in there that you don't have to do this silly move, but whatever.
Right.
And it's the same thing. So there's a miniature game called Battle Group, which is a pretty fun game. I've got almost every book for that one, and that's one I'm kind of vacillating. I want to like it, so I'm going to keep trying it. But it's got a spotting mechanism, and I always think of all the comments on Lock and Load, and that the spotting for Battle Group is one reason some people really kind of turn on it. But it's even more strict in that, so how a lot of times in games you can shoot twice in a turn, or move once, shoot once, or shoot twice and not move. Well, it's got that kind of thing. Well, if you shoot twice, each roll you have to spot. So I spot you and I shoot, and it's the same justification. It's like, right. You know how many guys shoot and close their eyes? Do you know how many guys shoot just kind of boom, boom? I mean, they're, the discipline of, especially World War II. I mean, any war, gosh, man. I've never been to war, thank goodness. But, with all the cams they have and the stuff in Iraq or wherever, you watch some of the cameras. Now, the camera is going to be a little less. You can spot things better in person. I'm like, what are they shooting at? I have no idea what they're shooting at. Yeah. And so I have no problem with it. It's frustrating, right? I like the rule. Let's do our advertisement for Yeti here.
Oh yeah, you got a Yeti as well. That's funny. Yeah, this is actually because I'm a cheap bastard. One of my friends' kids, one of my son's friends left his water bottle here. It's even got the logo. Where's the camera? It's even got the logo of the ranch that his family owns. We told him it was here. He never came and got it, so it's now mine. So,
nice. Yeah, possession, man. They're nice mugs. So I don't know where we're going with that, but so it's just I get, I have converted many board games. So the thing I like better about board games is the scenarios. Again, I'm a scenario player.
Right.
And those are done, they're the good ones, which Lock and Load and ASL are pretty good designs on their scenarios. ASL's got so many, most of them are pretty decent. I mean,
yeah.
And right now, Lock and Load's almost everyone I play is a down to the wire type of thing, and I play solo a lot, and it's still, the design is sharper, right? Because it has to be, I think. Whereas it's harder to find the scenarios. You really got to do a lot more work and design your own scenarios. And I've tried adapting some scenarios from board war games to varied success. You have to spend a little bit more time on that too, right? Because again, the Lock and Load scenario is designed to play in Lock and Load.
Right.
So I think you've commented on a video I was making where I was using an ASL board to play using Lock and Load stuff, and so I tried to. It was just my first time doing it, and it was too big a scenario to try this as. It was on the historical Hatton and Flames map. I'd have to do a little bit more tweaking and thinking about, okay, how do I make this scenario work with Lock and Load? So, all right, Devin's on with us, huh? All right. Yeah, looks like we had some
I just
in there.
I'm trying to tap to say hi, and I put it up. But anyway, carry on. So how do you make that work? Because I jumped in on you there.
No, that's fine. I think I'm still trying to figure that out, Kev, because like I said, I was trying to convert an ASL scenario to lock and load, and there's just a lot of things you got to think through, like the spotting and how the mechanisms work, and how does ASL model the machine guns versus how does lock and load model the machine guns and stuff.
Yeah, and even the whole firing mechanisms are different too, with the continuation of fire with ASL versus the sort of the one-shot deal, and that changes gameplay and your tactics, which will change the scenario design will be different too.
Yeah, and you got to really think through that, but at least having the base foundation of that scenario has helped. And so I've done some Blitzkrieg Commander using ASL scenarios, and the thing I struggle a little bit, sometimes I'm very black and white. I really want things to be black and white. And sometimes you have to kind of be a little bit more creative in designing the board. So I've done some boards that look almost exactly like the ASL board, but sometimes it's better just to kind of like, what's the feel they're trying to get here? You got some here, you got some, why did they put those there? Well, to give some cover, or for who knows. You have to spend a little time thinking about it. Whereas this scenario I got going here comes straight from a miniature rule game called I Ain't Been Shuttin' Mom by Two Fat Lardies. It's just an intro scenario, so it just had mortars, troops, and some machine guns. So it's you're not getting too complicated. So I was actually going to play it using Blitzkrieg Commander, and then I got that itch to play Flames of War, so I started using Flames of War. And it's not. Yeah, well, part of the reason a lot of my games don't work, Kevin, because I have no tactical skill.
I don't know about that. I don't think I've beaten you playing lock and load yet. So,
I don't want to brag, but
well, okay. So, have you ever taken the same scenario with almost exactly the same setup, and then gone from Two Fat Lardies to Flames of War to Bolt Action to whatever, and played the different systems, and then seen how the scenarios play out?
I've had really good intentions. So I kind of, so this is one of those things, I think I'd kind of need to go back and like review my videos. I have done it a few times. I did it with Bolt Action and maybe Chain of Command, probably Chain of Command.
Yeah, I thought you did it with something, didn't you?
Yeah, I have done it a couple times, and I just get bored with, I get an itch and I go do something else, right? And is what happens. But I have done it with a couple times, and I think that's probably one reason I kind of fell to the Bolt Action side, because, well, especially if you're doing a lot of solo stuff, which I do, every game's different for that too. Like Combat Commander is like one of the coolest games, and that's one of my highest, will always be one of my highest ranked. It's hard to play that solo, right? It's based on the cards and stuff. So that, whereas, a lock and load or something like that, you can do a little bit better solo because you got the every other thing, or some of these games where you're pulling a chit or something like that. There's some more fog of war there, but so I have a few times, and I come down to those easier games because I just have more fun, just like thinking a little less about the rules and a little bit more about how I want to move the guys around and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had an interesting crossover experience with Panzer. I was in Seattle. Was it that this year? I guess it was this year, and we played Panzer with Pico scale armor, and and we just used the Panzer maps. Although it was a custom scenario, so it wasn't an actual Panzer map, but everything was the same scale, and that was a lot of fun using, putting 5-6 tanks in a hex, and you've got these tiny little, Panzer IVs and T-34s and all that sort of good stuff. That was really cool.
So, but just using the Panzer rules straight, right?
Yeah.
Maybe no conversions here or there, but
literally no conversions. We literally just played Panzer, but put minis on the board instead of counters, and they were, I think that game was designed originally for minis anyway.
It was.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, it's like World at War a little bit. The guys that use minis for it.
Yeah.
Keith and Devin has played it before. OG. Well, that wasn't really designed, but that to me, Kevin, was the first time I played Nations of War. My very first video ever was a Nations of War unboxing back whatever years ago. And after I kind of learned about miniature games, I go, man, Nations of War and World at War are the most miniature-like board games I know.
Right. Same game mechanic too, right? With both sides rolling dice to, attack and defend and
hit and saves.
Saves, yeah, that's what you call it.
So yeah, but what's cool about it is it's just like it because you get the number of, there's very little charts, which is kind of cool. Now a lot of mini games have a lot of charts, but just the concept of, so Blitzkrieg Commander is you're rolling, five, well, I don't know, depending on what you're shooting, 5 to 10 dice to hit, and then the other guy rolls saves, and it's almost the same exact thing. And Lock and Load, I'm sorry, Nations of War and World of War are really, frankly, pretty easy games, right? On the surface and on the face. I mean, especially World of War, they've added some things, some little depth. But I enjoy those games a little bit for that aspect of it. You can just kind of get playing a little easier.
Yeah, definitely. And so, when you paint, is it a task or is it a joy?
Yeah, boy. No, I if I could afford it, I'd buy all my minis painted.
Right.
And I have this before, thanks COVID. Before that all went down, I saved up some money so my British Airborne, I had 2 different guys paint them. A guy named British Legion, who has a channel here called British Legion. He's in Britain, obviously. And he and I kind of like you, we've kind of been chatting back and forth on, chats and comments and videos and all that for years, and super cool dude, Nick. And so he one time, how the community is, people share stuff and give stuff. And so he sent me some minis one time, and I've always seen him. So he's one of the, I would say, boy, I'm kind of all over the place here, but I would say a lot of the guys you see, like Rob, it seems like, I don't know Rob at all, but a lot of people, they enjoy the painting of it. I would say the majority of the people enjoy painting more than the gaming. And I'm talking about these people, not tournament players, but maybe a lot of the people maybe you're more relating to. I think they enjoy the painting. Like I get on this chat Saturday nights, often at 8:45, Rocky's War Room, and we just talk bullcrap stuff. But let's see, there's 5 or 6. I'd say 3 of the guys, one guy pretty much exclusively paints. He almost doesn't play much of anything. One guy paints mostly. He plays a lot with his son. And then there's a couple of us that I'm definitely the least hobbyist. I mean, the least, modeler. And then there's a couple guys that kind of range that spectrum. But it's a lot. Let me tell you, it is cool when you do it and you're like, wow, I painted that, and my skill level has improved. And you really just have to do it regularly, just like anything.
Right.
Counter clipping. Yeah, you can obsess with board games too. I mean, you tell a mini person you're clipping counters, and they're like, "What? That's ridiculous." But then you show them the difference, and then they go, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah.
But it's a task, for sure. But like I said, just like I painted this building myself, and it looks decent. It's fine.
Yeah, looks good.
You'll learn, and I've come to like terrain a little bit more. But really, I want to be playing more than anything else. That's why on these live chats that we do, so many gamers, you see lots of chats, painting chats, because when you're painting, like counter clipping, but counter clipping just doesn't take as long. It's a solitary thing, man. You are there just looking at the books and painting, and it just, so a lot of times, like what we do on Saturday nights is just a bunch of guys get on, we're painting while we're talking, and then people are listening, 2 to 3 hour long chats. You think, gosh, 2 or 3 hours. Well, they're painting. So it's nice to have that background, and occasionally you can stop and chat. Or what's even cool is you can ask questions like, oh man, I am stuck. How do I make this white a little whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. But yeah, it's a task. And I always joke. I mean, I think that's one, I thought samurai would be cool and some other stuff. Man, you want to paint that stuff? Forget it.
Well, I've got that Phalanx game, the reboot of Rome versus Carthage, and it's got those beautiful little models. They're fantastic. You know, you've got Scipio and all those guys, but they're gray. And I look, I was like, man, these are really ugly. I need to paint these. But I look at them and go, you know, I am just, first of all, I'm going to have to go buy a bunch of paints, right? And then the brushes, and then all the other stuff. And then I know that's just one small step. And then saying, well, might as well go get some minis, right? But but I'm going to find someone to paint them for me and do that. I was trying to get my guys, my boys, into modeling, and I wanted to see if I wanted to get back into modeling, because when I was younger, I was probably like you. I made planes and all that sort of stuff, and so we built. And I say we, I did most of it, but I did this tag.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I tried to get, you know, but I don't have an airbrush or any of that sort of stuff. I'm trying to get that look of things that you know, those pros do. You just can't do it without that sort of airbrushing, feathering, and all that sort of business.
Yeah,
lots of technique.
No, yeah, I mean,
it was interesting though.
Yeah, I don't have an airbrush, and I'm not gonna ever. Well, I say ever. I can't imagine buying one because it's too much cleaning and maintenance to do on them. So, but the results they get. I mean, Kev, I've seen some 6mm stuff airbrushed that's incredible. You're like, what? Airbrushed? And his buildings, Dave Harrison here in town, his buildings are incredible at 6mm. I mean, you are there. It's awesome.
Wow.
But yeah, you gotta pretty much think. So if anybody wants to try mini or painting, the real big thing is wet down your paint a little bit, put a little bit of water or some sort of a medium that thins it out a little bit, and do it in a couple coats, because that'll get you that nice airbrush look. If you just dip the brush in the paint and paint it on, it doesn't spread right.
Yeah,
it's too great most of the time. And it just, but now I'm not saying I do this every time. Sometimes I go straight brush to thing, but when I don't and I use the water and kind of just put a couple layers on, it does look a lot better. I mean, so let me go back real quick. I just want to make sure I don't miss a shout out there. But so British Legion painted a bunch of my British Airborne just that came in recently. I did some videos on it. And Curtis, who is a guy I know, he watches you sometimes, Kev, because he's a mini and board game player as well. Curtis from oh my gosh, Dash of Alon. That's not, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his channel suddenly. But he does a lot of board and mini gaming. I'd say he's kind of like me in that way, but he's a commissioned painter, so he paints well.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, so he British, so he painted a bunch of minis for me, and I tell you what, man, I was so that they both painted British Airborne, so they're gonna mix, right? I'm gonna mix them up. Well, guess what? Curtis's are a little darker and a different style than British Legions, but it's cool. I still think they look good together. They're both cool quality, and I'm super proud of them. I remember when I started playing minis, people were ashamed that they had hired somebody, because there's a bit of pride in saying I painted something, right? But I'm like, screw that, dude. I'm going to give these guys props because it looks so good.
Right. Well, you know, one of my buddies, who is big into minis, and he makes an okay, well, he's just, you know, just a regular guy, but he has someone paint all his stuff. He'll do maybe base coats and stuff like that.
Sure.
But then he's got a kid that does them for like $1 a piece or $1.50 a piece.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not special, right? They're not super high quality grade, but he's playing everything from Ancients through to, like I said, Force on Force. You know, he's trying to get me into I think Spectre has
a lot of people are playing Spectre nowadays.
They have their own system out now. I've got the free rules of that, and we were looking at trying to get a game of that going to try that out. But they have amazing minis, right? The John Wick minis and all that sort of groovy stuff.
Yeah, you can do, I mean, 3D printing is allowing some cool stuff going on there, I'm telling you. Yeah, GM's Alcove, Fritz. Thank you, Hex and Shoulder Shah. I was looking at the comments here. But yeah, Fritz is who painted my stuff. GM's Alcove, he did my stuff. Yeah, so yeah, I would hire people. I love the work they did, and it's cool to be able to improve your craft. I mean, that's a neat feeling, but It's also a neat feeling to get the army, and it looks so good. I mean, British. I think both guys painted stripes on the guy's shoulders for the NCOs and stuff. Come on.
Wow.
Come on, I wouldn't do that.
And just getting the decals on, right? Well, like on all those Roman shields and the Greek, Greek
yeah,
shield.
Roman shield and stuff. Man, I'm not doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's why I think in that phalanx type stuff, that's cool in 6 mil. Because you got just hordes of guys, you know,
That's what gives it a real feel, right? The real
history. Oh yeah, that looks awesome. That's why a lot of people want to play like World at War and shoot, what's the other game thing? Anyway, World at War and stuff like that at 6 mil. It's just it's a better feel. Like World War II, you can go 15, it's okay, but start doing the modern war stuff, it's better to go smaller. And some guys like the Pico at that scale too, honestly, because the ranges are insane. So it looks so like Two Fat Lardies, for example, they sell their game kind of focused at 28 mil, even though they don't sell minis for it. That's their, I mean, that's what they demo it in and stuff. But they say the scale really works better for 15, the ground scale versus the figure size, right? Because the ranges and stuff, it looks better in 15. But even playing 15 skirmish is hard. It's a little harder to see the weapons and stuff. I mean, you have to paint them well to be able to see, is that a rifle? Because at those, you have to know what you're shooting. Even in Flames of War, you don't really have to know what you're shooting too much because your stand is kind of the stand. I think you have to know a little bit. I'm just learning it. But like Blitzkrieg Commander, it doesn't matter what they've got because the stand is either a infantry platoon or a heavy weapons platoon, and you can tell the difference with that. But I mean, that's the cool thing with like 28 mil, man, just being able to see their faces and the gun they're carrying and their canteens and stuff. And if you're good, like Nick and Curtis, you can paint 15 mils to, you know, look awesome. Whereas this guy painted like me and just went, here, let me just dip it in the gray paint. Germans. I do have kind of a regret to my purchase. I've kind of talked about it a few times. I should probably shut up about it, but I saw these Flames of War armies for sale, and I got a pretty good price on them, but oh boy, kind of a disappointment.
So if you're going to repaint those, do you have to scrape it all off, or
no?
You're just going to touch up?
Yeah, like these Germans, I need to get a little super glue because some of the guys have got some broken ankles. I just need to just kind of do some highlighting here and there, maybe do a little wash on the face so maybe their face stands out a little bit. The Germans are pretty minor, and I'm going to do a little bit better flocking on their grass looks gank, but
what a rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. See what I mean? Well, some of my Americans I got, he just primed them. I knew they were primed, so I knew they weren't painted. But almost all the M1 Garens, the guns chopped off at their hands. So, like, you know, so the gun doesn't go beyond their arm. It's chopped off here because they broke. Because of the harder plastic. I didn't see them all in shipping. So I'm like, but now it looks like they're all holding a bunch of submachine guns. So I'm like, but I guess what? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to paint them brown. I'm not going to worry. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best thing in the world, but I have started a new project.
What's that? Tell me.
So, and I did a video of it. So go check it out because there's a little bit of a memorial to a Medal of Honor winner there named Edward Carter. African American who won the Medal of Honor posthumously. I cannot say that word. In 1997, he got it. Clinton gave 6 African Americans Medal of Honor because back in World War II, the highest probably distinguished medal, I think, was the highest an African American could get, black could get. Well, then they were like, oh, that's not very cool. We gave all these other guys Medal of Honors for the same kind of action. Anyway, so the reason I'm really into World War II is because, and I got friends who are sick of hearing me say this, but my grandpa served in the 12th Armored Division. So one of the armored divisions built for World War II and then disassembled after World War II. I know that's not the right terminology, but so he's in 12th Armored, 56th Armored Infantry Battalion. Well, and I built a battalion of, redid a whole armored infantry battalion in 6 mil, you know, to honor that and just, again, immersion. I met guys, you know, my grandpa died in the 70s, but I met a lot of the veterans from that organization. So the 56 Armored was one of the first battalions to, well, I would say integrate, but they really weren't integrated, but they at least were involved in fighting. So some of the first integrated black troops were in the 56 Armored Infantry Battalion. Is a provisional company. The wording is very interesting, the history and stuff. But anyway, so there was a company that served in the 56 Armored Infantry Battalion. So I'm going to model that in Flames of War bases and stuff. So I just started priming them up and going to do that. And I also want to do some tanks from the now the tanks. I'm going to actually have to decal them because a Sherman looks like a Sherman. Doesn't matter who's driving it, but I'm going to do some of the 761st Black Panther Tank Battalion, which Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote about it, and then this guy's the guy from the group.
So you're telling me that they called the tank battalion the Black Panthers? Is that what that says? I can't be the Black Panthers. That's not what I saw. The Black what? It is the Black Panther.
Yeah.
Did the
landmines
battalion choose that name, or were they given that name?
I don't know that yet.
I was like,
well, I mean, I can't even read this first page of this book. I mean, this is written by someone from, I think, a relative of someone in the division, in the battalion. And yeah, I can't even. I don't know that yet, Kevin.
That's okay.
I think the Black Panther was used for a Black Panther symbol. I don't have a picture of it. Was used, I think, for tank battalion, destroyer battalions.
Okay.
And I don't know if they were tank destroyers or I think they drove Shermans. I don't think they. Well, anyway, so I want to model that. That's an important something that's important to me in our history as a country. So anyway, that's a new thing I'm starting is to paint that up. And I did not meet any of the guys that served in that, but there are. So anyway, one of the guys, Staff Sergeant Edward Carter, won the Medal of Honor. He was in that company. So I'm gonna. So again, see, it's me going for that story. You're not going to be able in 15 mil. No one is anybody, right? I mean,
right.
But it's more for me, and it allows me to be able to tell the story like I'm doing right now, the history of it, and we've all heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, but we use guys in all branches and all services and stuff. So, but reading the history is fascinating. That's probably a topic for another video and stuff. And so, but anyway, that's I think that allows me to, I'll tell you what mini wargaming has done for me, Kev, a little bit better is understand how the Army's made up and tactics and stuff a little bit better, because you kind of have to read a lot about how, okay, what's a platoon? What's a squad again? How many guys are in it? What's it look like? What's the command structure? You have to do a little bit, you have to be a little bit more self-taught a little bit in mini wargaming. Whereas, ASL or OCS, I don't know.
Yeah.
Shit, man, I don't know what it is. I mean, I know it's a squad, but what does that mean? I know it's a battalion, but what does that mean? But and some guys do dive in and understand it, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until I got into mini wargaming that I really started to dive in, which has made my board wargaming in more depth. I've given it more.
Yes. And so that's one of the things that I found interesting. I joined an Ancients Miniatures wargaming group online. I think it was a Yahoo group several years ago, because I was trying to see if the Great Battles of History scenarios were accurate, because I read some things weren't. And then I started doing a bunch of reading. And as I was reading all this source material, I was thinking, now, how did people come up with what the formations were and how big they were and how many people were in them and who was at that battle and all that sort of good stuff? And you go talk to the minis guys, and of course they've got 42 books on one battle or whatever, and cross-referenced, and so they know. But trying to pull that out of them to get like a order of battle for a battle was really hard, because they all had such broad opinions on everything they read, right?
Oh, well, right. Yeah. Well, you start to get, even the history is a little murky there. So
Right.
a lot of conjecture. And one of my most favorite, oh boy, let me start over. One of my favorite classes I took at school, at university, as some people would say, at KU, was, I was a business major, so I didn't have to take much history courses, but I took the history of the Roman military Roman history. Man, that was a cool class.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the woman that taught it, I mean, my two best classes at KU did not have a book. And those are classes I wish they did have books, because I would have kept those and I would have looked at them to this day. And the other one was the history of jazz. And the guy didn't have a book. He just had 10,000 jazz albums. And we did this whole survey of jazz from kind of the roots up. I mean, like way back roots, like where did it come from? Like what's the origin? Anyway, that's a diversion topic. Sorry. But this woman was very similar in that she just taught Roman military history, like how they organized the camps and how they put all that stuff together and why they flanked. There wasn't a lot on battles, which was interesting. I don't remember that anyway. What I remember more was the background, the logistics, the camping, and how they built stuff. And that's kind of the tests were always on, like, what kind of camp is this called, and what kind of camp is this called? And there definitely were dates, right? Like the ruler here, the ruler here. That's probably where I struggled the most in that class, because I have a hard time with that stuff. But what a great class that was. And I'm not even into that kind of history really, but super fascinating though. And I loved it. So that's, sometimes I wish I think I should have been a history major maybe, but anyway, I probably wouldn't have made any money.
Yeah, me too. But once again, there is that money thing, right?
But that's not the most important thing.
No, it's not, but it sure does buy a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, I got kids trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, and it's been fun trying to help them figure that out. But so when I first started minis, the reason I always thought, and I still think it's a great game. So the cool thing about Flames of War, and there's a few others, but Flames of War is really good about, is that you can buy a starter kit, like open fire box set, and it says, here's a platoon of troops, here's your stands, here's how many guys to put on the stands, here's how to organize them, and here are your stats. Go. Now, a lot of guys poo-poo that because, they make concessions on how things are built and whatever, right. Because they're also selling models, just like Bolt Action does. And Bolt Action is pretty good about that. You can buy starter sets and kits and stuff. I think those come with bases too. So, and then books on, like they show you how to paint it and all that stuff, because they're trying to get people into the game, right? And so, like, this new version 4 is out. It's simpler. It's more streamlined. Yeah, they took crap out. I'm not playing version 4 right now, but I love, like, I don't know who it was that said they only go as far as the starter kits, but I love the concept of starter kits, because I think, you just buy it. I got the base, because like I told you, basing is hard. Like, how do I base the minis? Blah, blah, blah. Everything is a rabbit hole. In board wargaming, there's a lot of rabbit holes, but the biggest rabbit hole is, how am I going to store my counters, and do I clip them? Well, okay. Well, that is a question. How do I store these minis in these houses? That's a pain in the butt too. Another topic for another day. But miniature gaming makes you work for it. So now I've got a bunch of rules up top and all the little history books, and plus other history books upstairs. I need a new bookcase.
Yeah, certainly need a bigger bookcase.
I stole that one from a room or something, so I need to get I definitely need that. But it's good times. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I like it. I think it's just fun to be able to roll dice. I feel like it's easier to get into than setting up like even a lock and load scenario. It's I like just kind of get down here and roll some dice and play it.
Would you ever see yourself dropping board games and going 100% minis, or vice versa?
Funny you should say that. It would. No, I don't think so, because as I think about getting older, it's going to be easier to transport board war games around and play with those, I think. Now, I know a lot of guys who are 70 and moving on that they're all strictly miniature gamers, but if anything, yeah, I've thought about, like, there are a couple times I've been like, do I want to keep doing this mini thing? It's a lot of work, and I could use that money. I kind of make myself a budget, a gaming budget every month. I kind of set aside a certain amount of money to, and I would suggest that to anybody. It helps you not feel guilty about buying stuff. I mean, if you have the money and it's there, it's great way to do it. But that's something else. But yeah, I think I would go to now that. So here's the thing. Have you ever read? Well, let me back up. Now that I've done this and the research and I kind of understand things, I would continue doing that. Just like if I was playing Lock and Load or something, I'd probably spend a little bit more time understanding the battles and stuff, like I have to do for minis. But I'd do that a little bit more with, like Lock and Load, we'll say. So if I'm playing a bulge game, maybe do a little bit more reading on it and just kind of understand how things are structured and things like that. Have you? So there's a guy who blogs. Oh my gosh, Grumble Jones. He does ASL. He plays ASL.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right.
So, but the reason I bring him up is a couple of things that are cool about him. One, he has the same guy he games with every Saturday. It's pretty cool, and they game via Skype. I think I don't know what they use, but something like Skype or something, where they move the camera on the dice bowl, and they each have their own board in front of them. So like you and I were playing ASL or Lock and Load or whatever. Instead of using Vassal, we would have the board set up, playing the game, and I'd say I'm moving the crew to A7. So you move your guy to you do it on your board as I do it on mine. He's been playing that way for years, like that, years, and all kinds. But the cool thing is his write-ups of his scenario replays. He says he spends like hours on them, right, on the replays. And I thought, he spends a lot of time finding pictures and maps and doing a lot of research on like the battle and all that stuff. And I thought that's a cool way of getting more immersion into the battle. Stu's Replays does that. Stu's, right. He does a little bit less of that now, but he's got some videos he did earlier in his channel where he would zoom in on the map and give you a lot of history and stuff. So seeing those guys do that, thinking what I've done for minis, I would be okay. I think there's some things I'd miss about it, but I would be okay kind of gleaming some of that I've learned doing mini gaming and just move it into board war gaming. I just think it will be easier to do and transport around and thin out and stuff.
Right. It's funny how you talk about the minis being you having to do with the research and stuff for the battles and things like that. With Lock and Load or with ASL and excluding their historical modules, most of I get the impression anyway, and maybe it's more with Lock and Load than anything else, but the scenarios are really representative, right? They're not they're not the Battle of Cherbourg or
you're right. Yeah.
Or the old scenario of some crossroads or whatever. It's really not that. Like the whole Naville module, while it gives you the whole sort of area, it's not any level of exactitude, and certainly the force mixes and stuff, because it wouldn't work, right? Because the history and those tactical, the Germans, if you give the Germans what they had, they get they run over the Americans really quickly.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
So I think it's kind of interesting that you get more out of the minis because you're doing a little bit of the extra homework to try and get some sort of sense of theme and place for a given scenario. Where I don't do any research, I whack out a Lock and Load scenario. This is representative of what went down. It really has nothing to do with history. Nothing to do with history so much.
Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting. This kind of ties into a little bit. And this is not an advertisement, but it sounds like one. So tomorrow, Matt, who runs Rocky's War Room community chat, he's been trying to come up with themes, and so tomorrow's theme is the lore trap. And what they mean by that, what we'll be talking about is, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody because I did post this on the channel, on the Facebook group, but basically like how do you let the lore kind of trap you in from actually doing the gaming or the painting?
Right.
Because like if you play like Warhammer or BattleTech or any of those things, there's a ton of lore, right? I mean, the stories, it's great and fascinating if you're into that. But it can also be, and just like World War II or any history, it's like I could research forever and never really do anything, right? Because I'm researching the thing. But so yeah, I think I get a little stuck on the history side. I'm glad you kind of threw me in a little bit of reality there. But yeah, most of those scenarios are represent, especially at the tactical level. Like
Yeah.
it's a little easier.
Yeah, it is. So that's why I've started to enjoy a lot of the operational scale stuff more, because at least you're starting out with the context and you know what the sort of overall mission is and the commander's intent is. And then, yeah, things are going to probably diverge pretty wildly from there, but at least you've got an accurate historical starting point. Typically.
Yeah.
Whereas with a tactical game, other than say TCS, the Tactical Combat System, platoon scale stuff, you don't even necessarily have the forces or the terrain or the time to do what they were going to do. You just have a historical set of objectives, which was they captured a bush or they left the road, right? That's what, if they met and they fought or they defended or they attacked. There's only a half a dozen different things you can do in any given scenario. So, so how that comes, you don't really get that unless you get that true historical kind of module that the ASL guys do with all their big detailed things. And I think even then, I'm pretty sure they're not 100% accurate OBs, because they have to be play balanced, right?
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, that's so funny. So I guess so. I think what it is, so for both board game and miniature gaming, I just need some semblance of history. So
right, it's representative, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess what I was saying is every miniature war game has a set of scenarios in the back of the book, and if you're a board war gamer, you're gonna think, cool, scenarios? No, what they mean is this. Actually, let me see if I can pull one out here. I mean, even my favorite, oh gosh, here. Bolt Action will have a good illustration here. I think most people are probably familiar with this, but just in case they're not, please hold. Entertain the troops while
I will. Let me tell you this joke. There's a.
Okay, we're enough of that. So now.
Good. You got it?
So, battle scenarios. No man's land. So they do that, right? They say, okay, everyone's going to have 1,000 points of troops, and you're going to start here, and they're going to start there, and you come up with a couple of objectives and whatever. Oh, that's meeting engagement. Meeting engagement's a popular one.
Right.
So, and it's made for a tournament, right? So that you and I come to the tournament. It's a 1,000-point tournament. We build the army within the rules of how to build an army, whatever that game says. And then we know that we're playing double envelopment. So we both know the rules to that scenario. We know, and then we go at it. And the terrain. Now the good people will make the terrain look realistic, kind of a
right.
Instead of just plopping down a tree or something. But I tried to play that kind of scenario, and I just, even though Kev, every scenario is designed to that kind of abstraction, right? Every ASL scenario is either a meeting engagement or an airborne assault, or like you said, there's how many choices are there? Blitzkrieg Commander has got 16 different kinds of scenarios. Well, I just have a hard time playing those, but yet all I'm really doing with this is an attack and defend. But I have the story of Cherbourg behind it and some semblance of, because I like it when they give you the troops you need, kind of like a board war game. Here's the troops you get to battle. I don't like army building. I have no desire doing that. And when I play role-playing games occasionally, I usually have someone else build my guy, because I can't build a guy or an army to save my life. So, because you got a number crunch and stuff. Boy, I'm a lazy gamer. Too bad there's already a guy with that. I would call myself the lazy gamer. But does that make sense what I'm saying? You're right. The lock and load and ASL geomorphic scenarios are it's, Devin's working on some scenarios. He's getting as close as he can, right?
Yeah.
Doing the research on whatever ones. I don't know which ones he can talk about, which he can't, but he's trying to do historical scenarios, but he's just going to get as close as he can on it. So, so is this some of the comments going on there?
Yeah, a bunch of comments, and Stigler here makes a point, which is kind of building on Kent's comment, and I'm in the same boat here, and as you are by the looks of it, you get a new game or you buy a new game system, and if it's minis, you typically go, oh, well, gee, that's really curious. I might get a book on that, or the opposite happens, right? You buy a book or two, and that sparks your interest in purchasing a game on that topic. That those two things go hand in hand, I think.
Oh, for sure. I mean, gosh, in both miniature and board war gaming, I see a movie and I want to play a game on it. I mean, like,
oh god, yeah,
Band of Brothers or whatever, just name it, and I want to. Oh, that's interesting. Or reading a history, like read. I mean, I got to tell you, I've discovered, Anthony Beaver, and I think I only have his audio, but Normandy 44 by a guy. Fantastic book. But man, does that make you just want to play a D-Day game?
Yeah.
But so Kev, you're this thing I talked about, lore trap and all that, but
yeah,
I think I kind of get myself stuck on that sometimes, like stuck that it has to be
exact.
Someone said it in the chat there. I think it was Kent said I'm into more of the history than the gaming. Sometimes I think I think a little bit too much about the history and not enough about the game itself.
Right.
And like Lock and Load is a game, and like ASL with that whole, and I'm not very good at this with games. This part of it is, like ASL. I told you the skulking thing. Are you familiar with that? Yeah.
Yep.
So if the viewers don't know, basically you can, because it's a sequential system, you can move back one out of a building, and then in the defensive fire phase, they can't shoot you because you're not in the building, and then you can advance up into the building. So it's basically illustrating what Lock and Load does with spotting, right? Sort of, except for you can't shoot at them at all. But that's not a rule that's written, and I would never think to do that, because I'm thinking too much historical, like, what would the guys do? Well, they're not going to go out of the building and back in the building. Well, because I'm so stuck in the history, and I need to think more about the game, right? Like, what's the game if I want to play it that way? But I like the history so much, I have to have someone great tell, oh, hey, here's a strategy you can think. I'm like, oh yeah, because I'm so stuck in around the paradigm of the history I'm trying to play, which is fine, because that's why I play games. I mean, yeah, I'm not going for world championships or anything, but does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of tournament games that are built for tournaments, whether it be a board game or a minis game. Those guys that do that sort of list building exercise where they build the best army ever, and you never can beat them, and that has nothing to do with history. It's just here's 1,000 points. I just don't get excited about that. Not
at all. And like I said, I can't even play the scenarios. I've tried it just to learn a game. I'm like, I can't even do it. So I set up this kind of scenario, which is more complicated.
Right.
But it's just more. Yeah. Now the one I would like to go to this local ASL tournament. I'd like to try a tournament in ASL or Lock and Load if there were any, because the biggest reason is, one, I'm going to play players I don't ever play.
Right.
I don't play that many players. And so I'm going to learn a lot of things, like, oh, wow, I never thought of that, tactics and stuff like that. And you just get a lot of games in, right? In a short amount of time. In ASL, I still don't think I would play a tournament with a miniature game, because you kind of really got to think through list building. But in ASL, you don't have to think about the list. You just, or Lock and Load or whatever.
Right.
The game's the game. I mean, I would get my butt demolished, but I've heard they're good and they're fun. Yes, you have a couple of guys that are trying to win, but you're not going to face them after the first game, because they're going to be winning and I'll be losing. So, but I would like to. So this guy that runs the St. Louis one, I'd like to try that. But who knows? Maybe I get the bug and I could become ASL champion.
It's a dream.
It doesn't hurt to dream. Like the old combat commander tournaments they used to. I don't know how much they do that anymore, but even at Geekway of the West, there was a little tiny 8-person tournament that people would hold.
Yeah, I actually accidentally got into the final of a Combat Commander tournament.
That's awesome.
I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I think that's why I was doing so well, is because I was making bizarre moves that were frustrating people. I said, "Can I do this?" They're like, "Yeah, I think you can do that." Are you sure? I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, okay."
They're thinking
about the rules. I don't know if that was really kind of kosher, but I was kind of roped into it and ended up, then got totally schooled by this dude. So
that's when they were really going popular, I think some of the same people won a lot of those Combat Commander tournaments, and kind of proving the thing that wrong, that, oh, it's all luck and it's all random and chaos. And like, not really.
Yeah, it's all card counting.
Yeah, and guess what? I don't do well. Card counting, that kind of thing. Man, I don't do that. I just never played a game. I almost play turn to turn. I think Matt on that. He's from the guild, but he does the podcast. Gamer, if you're quiet, you can hear my son singing.
Yes.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I'll have to tell him that. This is the second chat he's been on now. Where was I? Well, it doesn't matter. I can't remember anyway.
Card counting is what we were talking about. But
card counting. Yeah, that's not my thing.
All right. Well, anyway. I tell you what, we probably should let these people go and actually play a game and roll dice instead of us
talking about it.
Talking about it. But I'm going to go watch a movie or something, or read a book. I don't think I'm going to play any games tonight. Yes. You're going to keep, but you were in the middle of playing when.
Yeah, I made one move while I was waiting for you to get on there.
Yeah.
I got to say, my whole American left flank was literally wiped out to nothing. That platoon was wiped out, and because I tried assaulting before understanding the concept. So now the mortar team and the mortar squad, the platoon in the back's like, holy crap, they're going to book it on over here and get over here. And I think what I'm going to do is see what it takes to bring on a reserve. So really, I should have 3 platoons, but I didn't have enough minis. Well, now I have a whole platoon of minis that died. So now we're going to have
the reserves, ready reserve, a quick reaction force, right?
Exactly. So I'm going to try to bring those guys in, and I probably need to play this, Kev, not live. I played both first times ever live, and while that's fun, and I did have a couple guys come on actually, and one guy popped on last night that actually walked me through some of the rules, which was awesome, and I appreciate that like crazy.
Right.
I think I need to spend a little time quietly by myself, kind of like, okay, so here's how assault works, look up the rules myself. And
I was trying to watch you play that the other night. I was on my phone. I was laying on the couch, and because I'd gotten hacked off with Deadly Northern Lights, I was just got to one of those points where it's like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do, so I'm going to stop. And I was like, I'm going to, and then I got bing, Todd's online. I went, oh, well, okay, let's go see what Todd's doing. And I was watching you go through. I was like, man, this is, I was feeling your pain and I was suffering. So it was.
Yeah, I don't know, Kim, what do you think? We have that creators group on Facebook. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, I don't know if I should do those live ones like that, because I know it's going to be, I can imagine it's just like moments of silence. And I'm like, what? Sometimes I become very conscious of it. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Well, you feel pressure to make choices, and that's why I'm not doing anything live with Deadly Northern Lights, because it's so thought-provoking in terms of the gameplay, and then you've got a lot of rules that are relatively familiar but different, and so I would have to get another 20 turns down before I could really sort of just jump on and go, okay, we're going to play a turn of Deadly Northern Lights tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That's not going to happen. So, whereas, lock and load, I can fumble my way through it and make a few mistakes here and there, and people will get the gist of it, or OCS or whatever. But it's not. It's this. So learning a game live, I think, is probably not a highly valuable exercise for yourself, let alone for the viewer, unless you've got guys who are helping you, right?
Yeah, which I did. And so as I was thinking through it last night, I was like, if I can get one of those guys on, or somebody else that knows it and wants to walk me through it, and they have that patience to like, okay, so what do you, then I might do that.
If you had them live with you, like actually had them up on the chat like you and I are now, and they could see what you're seeing, and you won't have the lag on there's like a 30-second lag on the comments and stuff. So
Well, yeah, and trying to help via comment is not a good.
Yeah.
Because I ask a question and like 2 minutes later, there's an answer.
Yeah,
That,
and you really
that's
made
what I
it.
got jumped on. I've had that happen a couple of times. He was very patient. Eric was his name. But I had a guy come on and he goes, "You're driving me crazy." Actually, it was with Devin and I when we were playing Lock and Low. I don't remember who it was. He goes, "I'm pulling my hair out over here," and he jumped on and he helped us out. That was nice.
Yeah. I think that happened to me once with BCS. This guy, no, it was OCS. I was playing OCS live with Aardwolf, and this guy was sort of giving advice on what I could do or should do, and I wasn't doing it. And he goes, "Okay, well, clearly you don't know what you're doing, and you're doing it wrong. You could have got 6-1, blah blah blah." It's like, because of the lag. I was like, okay, hey, first of all, I'm playing, not you. Secondly,
yeah.
Oh well, right?
Yeah, I've recently seen a little bit more comments. People getting a little bit more like, "Man, you do not do that right. You're driving me crazy with your tax." I'm like, I never tell anybody I'm a good gamer, man. I just, which is just what you get with me, man.
Yeah.
But I'm having a good time. So.
Yeah. You know what? It's just to me when I get on live, it's just it's a little bit to relieve the boredom of me talking to myself, right? So,
Oh no, that's why I do it too. Yeah. I mean, and it kind of just gives me a little bit of energy. I tell you, I get a lot of energy doing stuff like painting and doing stuff on camera. It's almost like a part of the hobby now. So
yeah.
But I like when you play. This we're diverting way off of what you want to talk about, but yeah, when you're playing, I like how you just do like you do like 20 minutes or something like that. And I assume you keep playing after or something. You just come on with something big's going to happen, or you're trying a different rule out or something. I don't know, but. So I think about that. I think maybe I should do that. Just kind of pop on occasionally. Just like, okay, I'm going to try this assault. Let's try this through or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and I know. So for everyone who's interested or joining, I think we've had about 20 people on and off, but we're kind of done with the
Sorry everybody.
War game conversations. But this is just kind of a ramble now. But I think for video content, there's a desire, I think, for folks that they want to see the whole thing, but really they don't, because they can't really take it in. You can't take in 2 hours of content. And some people say, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I put it on the background." I say, well, if you put it on the background, how can you see the counters and know what's going on and know what the rules are? But I find that people get more value out of the shorter, whether it's 20 minutes or half an hour or whatever it may be. And if that helps you be a little more focused, and there's an end, right?
Yeah.
We say it's going to be a turn or half a turn, and everyone kind of has the expectation. And it allows you can go back over stuff, or you can redo it, or whatever the case may be. I've done some streams where it's just, let's play, and you always get to the point where you don't want to stop and look a rule up, right? You don't want to, and then you think, oh gee, I'm boring people and this is not interesting to them. And I think I'm mostly over that now. I just like, oh, sorry guys, I gotta look this shit up because it's hard, right?
Yeah, right. So. Yeah, you definitely have to. At some point you don't worry about it. You kind of. Right. And a lot of people watching you understand they have to look up rules and stuff, but it doesn't make for a great video. Or you can do like I did, Kev. The first night I did this, and I had the camera pointing down to one part of the table, and I was doing an assault on the other side of the table. And I looked up and realized it, and like one of the guys had but I hadn't seen the comments because I was way over on that side of the board. And I looked over, and I was like, oh my gosh. And he said, is your video still working? I can hear you, but there's nothing's moving, because it was sitting on this board where I wasn't even at. I was like,
oh, hilarious. Well, so I do that even with my recorded videos. I'll be talking about stuff, and I was like, oh, hang on, wait, what? Let me bring the camera over, because you're zoomed in on something, you forget to move it because you get all excited about making the video. And then this happened, and then I was like, what is he talking about?
I know what's happening. So anyway, that's the thing. So cool.
Right. Yeah, right. Good chat, man.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to end the broadcast for everybody. Yeah, so say goodbye to Todd. Don't forget to check his channel out, Itinerant Hobbyist. And I'll try, if you send me the links, Todd, to your friends who do the painting, I'll add them into the YouTube channels and stuff. I'll add it into the description for you.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll get a link to that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Good night.